I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself, or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry.
Hi, everybody. This is
Apologies Accepted.
The podcast.
The podcast.
And I'm not Theo.
I am not Juliet. And we are sort of not in sync.
We're not in sync. I think it's my my network connection. I may have to turn off video in a minute. So hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the podcast.
Sorry you won't be able to watch the video of us. Which we never release or do.
We're looking extra nice today. Yeah, except I'm a little bit red in the face more than usual because I did a peel last night, and I guess this is what you get when you spend less than $5 on a chemical peel.
Ooh.
So it was very painful last night. I had to take it. I had to wash it off immediately, and I've been super red ever since. So
how long were you supposed to leave it on?
10 minutes. So it's the ordinary. It's their, I don't know what it is, salicylic acid. I don't remember. Some sort of peel. It's supposed to be exfoliating, and I think it probably did exfoliate. So that's my news for the week, I guess. I haven't really
news for the week
very much. So what's shaking bacon is that I've been spending too much money on skincare on the one hand, and too little money on care on the other hand.
Well, you look beautiful regardless of what that chemical peel did to your face.
Well, duh. But so, all right. So, what's shaking bacon with you?
Hey, I will tell you because I had quite the week. Let's see. So last weekend we went wine tasting out in the Texas Hill Country, which was very pretty and also gross because Texas it shouldn't be doing wines. And sorry, yes, I'm a Californian saying that, and I know, and I get it, and all right, fine, but they were all horrible. However, the people that were there were all delightful, and there was one guy, which would be kind of relevant, this story will be kind of relevant to what we're talking about today, maybe. And he's a comedian, not professional, but he's done stand-up, and he was telling me that white guys are under... what expression do I want to use? Not under the gun, under scrutiny. But it's just like white guys are now the butt of all jokes, right? That if he wants a great laugh, then the white guy has to be the punchline, right? And I was like, maybe. I don't know about that, but I would say it's pretty uncomfortable to be scrutinized all the time, don't you think? And isn't that just about what white guys probably deserve? Because they've been doing all the scrutinizing all these hundreds of years. Yeah. Sorry, it's happening in, your lifetime.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's a point. Sure. Okay, cool. But so anyway, I had that thing about like just, the plight of the poor white guy in my head. And that my sister and I went out to get coffee one morning, like 2 days later. It doesn't matter how many days later, whatever, Theo, Jesus. So we went out to get coffee, and we walked into a Starbucks, not a sponsor of the show.
Right, yeah.
Because we don't have sponsors. And
yet.
And we were in the medical district in Austin. And so it's a lot of doctors and nurses in the area, of course, a lot of hospitals and just a lot of like stuff, a lot of medical facilities around. And I counted 4 different guys, all white, who walked in, no masks, walked in like they owned the joint, leaned against it. 4 different guys, because it took them a while to get our coffee, right? Because people are placing online orders. And we were dumb and walked in because we're whatever.
Yeah.
4 different guys at 4 different times walked in and leaned their elbow up against the bar and just started chatting with the baristas as if the baristas were not filling 600 online orders, right? And dodging angry stares from me because I was like, I just have latte. Put the coffee in the milk.
Wow.
Yeah. So So there is definitely something up.
I guess that's different for sure from California, because I tried to go in and grab a latte. I forgot my mask, and I was standing outside the window waiting for my drink to come up so I wouldn't have to wait inside, because I could see where the counter from the window. And I ran in real quick to grab my drink when it was ready, and I was like, that's it right there, can I have it? And she's like, you need a mask. I'm like, can I just have my drink? And she's like, okay, but you need a mask. And I was like, sorry. And I really felt bad because I needed a mask.
Yeah.
But that's a very different experience than in Texas.
That's a very different experience than in Austin, Texas, which tends to be a little more liberal than, Texas. But,
right.
All right, cool. Let's see.
I mean, I almost didn't get my coffee. God forbid.
Well, I love that she was telling you to wear a mask, and you should have just been like,
I know.
Listen, I have a podcast, and you can listen to 56 episodes where all we do is complain about people without masks, and so I know. I'm just not wearing one right now.
I know exactly what you're talking about, lady. Can I have my coffee now? The worst. I'm the worst.
Oh, no, you're fine. And you know what? Maybe not by February. I think Omicron is going to take over the news cycle for the next couple of weeks moving into Christmas. And then maybe by about March, it's just going to be like, screw it. Here we are. COVID's just a new flu. Well,
but we can all hope.
I can't. No more. It's been 2 years. I mean, I'm still wearing my mask, and I'm happy to get shots. I'm happy to get shots. Yeah, I'm a 5-year-old. I'm happy to get vaccinated, and I'm happy to get boosters, and I'll wash my hand, whatever, right? I'm happy. I'll do it. But I am done hiding in the house. I am done not socializing with people. I am done, I know
the feeling, but I'm not done yet, although I'm pretty much done with my fucking living room. I'll tell you what. Sick of it. But at least you guys have moved, so you've had a change of scenery.
We have a different house.
I've been staring at the same brown couch for 3 years. Well, I mean, longer than that, but...
But I know what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Pandemic, pre-pandemic, pandemic, sort of post-pandemic. Where are we? Let's see. I would say that's kind of all shake and bacon. Okay. So I have 2 more bacon bits to add.
Bacon bits.
I'm going to run this joke into the ground so deep. Okay, so my sister was here for Thanksgiving, and she stayed on the extra week or whatever, and that was sweet and fun. And I made her watch Children of Men, which she'd never seen before, right? And I was like, how could your whole life never have seen this movie? It's so great. I haven't
seen it.
Oh, my God. Go watch it today. Children of Men.
All right.
It is
Children of Men.
It is amazing. And so I never noticed this. I've seen it probably 3 times. The lead character's name is Theo, right?
Oh, wow.
And guess what the other lead character's name is?
James?
Juliet.
No.
Well, she goes by Jules in the movie, so I'm extending out her name to the proper form, right? But
wow.
Yeah, I was like, holy God, that's amazing. I have to for sure tell that to the original Juliet.
Wow.
And then, so my sister was here, and we were out at dinner, we were talking, and and so I was telling her the news about our podcast hitting the charts. Mm-hmm. Hard to fucking believe we have charted, right?
Right.
And so I was sharing some of that news with her, and she was like, oh, yeah, that's great. Well, I'm going to be driving home, and I've got 12-hour drive, so I may just listen to it. And I told her, and this was my gut response. I was like, listen, you can't listen to our show. It's a private conversation that we record and put on air.
It is, though.
It is none of your business.
It is. Do not download this show. It's not for you.
No.
Oh, no, that's funny.
Private.
That's how I feel about being on the charts, is that, oh my God, who's going to listen? I can't believe people are actually listening to this.
Well, hey, that's great. So,
but also terrifying.
Well, we're on the charts, but we're in the Hot 1000, and I'm loving it.
Still better than nothing.
It is. Is it?
We're on a rocket to the moon, Theo.
We're on a staircase to the moon, and we have to walk. It's been a slow climb, but that is all right. Yeah, so
It's more like we're going to Pluto or something. It's going to take 100 years.
And I'm going to say it's not that I don't like our show. We are my favorite show, right? One of my favorite shows. I have a lot of favorite shows.
What?
It's true, but I love them all equally. I'm like a parent with a child, right? With a lot of children.
Okay, sure.
Right. I'm a parent with one child.
This is your only actual child, though, so I think it should be number one.
Maybe a dog. Dog would count as. Oh, you mean a podcast children? Yeah.
Podcast child.
Okay, well, I love my nieces and nephew podcasts more. All right, I can't work with that.
Right,
I got nothing.
Fine.
But anyway,
Whatever.
yeah. So whatever the point to that is, I was going to say, and this isn't anything about podcasts that are below 1,027, but I'd like to hear them. Because, is it a quality issue or is it just simply, like us, is it an exposure issue?
I'm sure it's an exposure issue for us. I mean, it's not a quality issue.
Not a quality issue at all.
Definitely not.
I am covered by the finest blankets in this closet while I create this podcast with you.
Speaking of the finest, I have been overspending on skincare, like I was telling you earlier. The one time I made a mistake and paid very little for something, it came back to bite me in the butt. But now my bathroom is like full of Chanel and Dior and all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm spending outrageous amounts of money on. I mean, can you believe I spent like $60 on a lipstick? It's crazy.
I don't know how much lipstick costs in general, right?
Well, that's actually a thing on TikTok now, is that people are asking men how much they think lipstick costs, and men are giving, of course, outrageous examples because they've never had to buy lipstick. So, but it can range from like a couple bucks to $60. So, $60 is the most expensive lipstick I've ever seen.
Right, from 99 cents to the price I paid for it.
To the price I paid for it. And it's usually I guess $20 would be kind of a pricey lipstick. So $60 is fucking outrageous.
Is it good?
Frankly. Yeah. I don't know that it's $60 good, but I'm not sure what would be $60 good in a lipstick. I mean, it would have to do the dick sucking for me.
Hey, welcome to the club. I've been waiting a long time. And I am proud.
I can't believe I said that.
You said it so I didn't have to, because that would have been really horrible of me to make that joke about you, right? And the clickers would have been going off, and you would have been like, listen.
Wait a minute, Theo, that's inappropriate.
Right.
Oh, my God. So on that note, let's talk about some other inappropriate things.
Right. And so
I'm not sure we're ready for this.
Well, right. Our last couple of episodes, we maybe should have just started off with, hey, everybody, this is a little bit different from our usual episodes. Recently, of late, they've been very lighthearted and fun because we were doing a lot of heavy downer ones, and it just started to get a little grueling on me, and it was like, I need a break. I need to step away from all of the horribleness that sometimes, the apologies are always, tough when you just look at, let's find an apology, right? Because it's usually about racism or some horrible political thing, right? Or, when somebody's apology makes news, it's typically bad. So when we want to do lighthearted stuff, we have to think of a subject that's kind of whatever, right? I'm over explaining
like
here.
Christmas sweaters or something. Yeah,
or like the nativity, right? So we could talk about history or whatever, right? And then try and find an apology within that. And this one just fell onto the radar, and it's definitely of course it's a conversation worth having. But I'm not excited to explore this topic with you. That you can already tell how awkward I feel. It's like,
Yeah, so trigger warning for people, sexual assault will be mentioned. If you're not into that, oh God. If you're not
if you are into that, turn this off and turn yourself in.
Yeah, please. I'm sorry. What was I thinking? If you're not ready to hear about that right now, skip this episode.
Listen.
If you're not ready to hear us making bad jokes about things that we shouldn't be joking about, turn off this episode. Not that we intend to make bad jokes about this.
It will just happen.
It's just beyond our control. So
it's kind of true. It is beyond our control. That
I think so.
The anxiety and that tension of, oh, this is uncomfortable. It's just like, boom, the joke pop out.
Got to make a joke to lighten up the tension. So let's talk about today Anthony Broadwater, who is a black man who is now 61 years old. He was convicted of the rape of Alice Sebold, who is a white woman, and she was born in, I think she was born in 1960, so she's, I don't know, does that make her 61 too?
She was born in 1963.
Oh, so she's not yet 60. She's just slightly older than us. She's perhaps best known as the author of The Lovely Bones, and this rape conviction happened in 1982. Anthony Broadwater always said that he was innocent and passed 2 lie detector tests, but he spent more than 16 years in prison. He was denied parole at least 5 times because he refused to admit to a crime that he did not commit.
Which I've got to say, just right there is amazing, because if I was in his shoes, I think I would have lied and said, yeah, in order to get out of jail. I mean, 16 years. Yeah. It wasn't like 4 weeks, right? This was over the period of years, and it's not like jail was easy for him.
Oh no, I'm sure it's not easy for anyone. Well, except maybe rich people, but. Yeah, he spent 16 years in prison in unpleasant places.
And so to consistently maintain your innocence, when you are innocent, I mean, he was innocent. It's beyond, because as I said, I would have confessed in order to get out of jail.
It would be extremely tempting to anyone to confess, to get out of jail, especially because after he was released, he had a sex offender status and had a really hard time finding a job because he had been in jail for raping someone. But he did not give up attempts to clear his name. Nothing went his way until November 22nd of this year, when New York State Supreme Court Justice Gordon Cuffey vacated the rape conviction and other counts related to it. Onondaga County District Attorney William Fitzpatrick said at the security hearing where Broadwater's conviction was overturned, "I'm not going to sully this proceeding by saying I'm sorry. That doesn't cut it. This never should have happened." So things worked out for Anthony Broadwater with the help of Timothy Machani. I think that's how, I don't know, maybe they say Machani. I don't know how it's pronounced.
Well, it's Machani, and you did real well on it. And I only know that because I managed to find an interview with him, because I was calling him Mukananti in my head the whole time. And that is the worst last name on the planet. Hi, I'm Mr. Mukananti.
Your voice cracks me up. So Timothy Machani was executive producer of a project to adapt Alice Sebold's memoir, Lucky, which is in part about the rape, or largely about the rape, to film, when he noticed discrepancies in the part of her book that described the trial. He told the New York Times later, "I started having some doubts, not about the story that Alice told about her assault, which was tragic, but the second part of her book about the trial, which didn't hang together." He ended up leaving the project because of his concerns about the story, and he hired a private investigator to locate Broadwater and review the evidence against him.
Yes.
So for some backstory, were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say that I saw an interview with the BBC, and the presenter who was conducting the interview with Mr. Machani said, "So you were fired from production because of your doubts around the trial." And Mr. Machani did not correct him. Now, I don't know if, and this wouldn't be BBC's typical way of operating.
Gossip.
Had Mr. Machani refuted that phrasing, right? Like, "Oh no, I wasn't fired.
Yeah.
I quit." Right?
Yeah.
So in the everything I've seen in the U.S. press has been that he dropped out, which makes it sound like it was his decision, right? The fact that he didn't correct the news presenter, maybe there was something just a little bit more there, right?
Yeah, how interesting. I wonder. I hadn't heard that, but I didn't read the BBC, any BBC articles or European articles about it.
Oh, what was a TV interview?
The UK is Europe.
And so they could have edited out. I guess that was a point I didn't make. The BBC could have edited out his rebuttal. "I wasn't fired," but that wouldn't be the way they operate. They would have left that in.
Right. Yeah. Right. You think.
So maybe he didn't catch it.
Oh. Okay. Okay. So that's Timothy Machani. For some backstory, Alice Sebold's rape occurred when. Why are you laughing at me?
Because it's Muchanti and you almost said Mukanati.
Oh, I don't know what I almost said. Muchandi. Okay, let's go to Alice Sebold.
Yes.
She was raped when she was a freshman at Syracuse University in 1981. So almost 5 months after she was raped, she saw Anthony Broadwater on the street in Syracuse. He reminded her of the rapist, and she reported the encounter to police, according to Broadwater's attorneys. Now, this whole thing about her seeing him on the street is all a little weird to me, because I read that, I don't know what you read, but I read that she walked past him, she recognized him, she turned around to make sure that she recognized him, and he said, "Hey girl, don't I know you from somewhere?" Or something along those lines.
I had not heard that. I have not seen that at all.
That's what I read. And then I read that he said something like, "Hey girl, you look familiar," or something like that. And then she was convinced that he was the man who had raped her, and she went to a nearby policeman and identified him. So the police then arranged a lineup to identify the rapist, but she picked the man standing next to Broadwater. She said that number 4, Broadwater, and number 5, the man she identified as the rapist, were almost identical twins, but that one had broader features than the other, which I would be like, okay, then they're not identical twins. So anyway, so allegedly, police coached her to correct her misidentification and identify Broadwater as her rapist. They told her some story where Anthony Broadwater had brought number 5 along to
they
trick
were
her,
friends.
and
They
were friends.
Yeah, friends with the guy in the lineup that was standing next to him.
Like, what that has to do with anything is beyond me.
Well, and also the fact that
wasn't
true.
Right. It was not true.
Right.
They didn't know each other. He didn't bring him along to trick her. He didn't bring him along to glare at her and scare her and make her identify
that's the prosecutor
the wrong man.
trying to influence the victim and get a conviction because they want a conviction.
Right. So that's what happened, basically. He was then convicted based on Sebold's account and the analysis of a piece of hair. And that was an analysis that was later determined to be faulty. His attorneys wrote, "We know now that the testimony of the forensic chemist stemmed from a largely debunked forensic approach to hair microscopy. The basis of the technique used to match the 2 hairs has since been entirely discredited, with several articles calling it junk science." Alice Sebold apologized to Broadwater a week after his conviction was overturned. And here's what she said in her apology. I'm going to read it all because I think it's interesting and worth paying some attention to. She said, "First, I want to say that I'm truly sorry to Anthony Broadwater, and I deeply regret what you have been through. I'm sorry most of all for the fact that the life you could have led was unjustly robbed from you, and I know that no apology can change what happened to you and never will. Of the many things I wish for you, I hope most of all that you and your family will be granted the time and privacy to heal. 40 years ago, as a traumatized 18-year-old rape victim, I chose to put my faith in the American legal system. My goal in 1982 was justice, not to perpetuate injustice, and certainly not to forever and irreparably alter a young man's life by the very crime that had altered mine. I am grateful that Mr. Broadwater has finally been vindicated, but the fact remains that 40 years ago, he became another young black man brutalized by our flawed legal system. I will forever be sorry for what was done to him. Today, American society is starting to acknowledge and address the systemic issues in our judicial system that too often means that justice for some comes at the expense of others. Unfortunately, this was not a debate or a conversation or even a whisper when I reported my rape in 1981. It has taken me these past 8 days to comprehend how this could have happened. I will continue to struggle with the role that I unwittingly played within a system that sent an innocent man to jail. I will also grapple with the fact that my rapist will, in all likelihood, never be known, may have gone on to rape other women, and certainly will never serve the time in prison that Mr. Broadwater did. Throughout my life, I have always tried to act with integrity and to speak from a place of honesty, and so I state here clearly that I will remain sorry for the rest of my life that while pursuing justice through the legal system, my own misfortune resulted in Mr. Broadwater's unfair conviction, for which he has served not only 16 years behind bars, but in ways that further serve to wound and stigmatize nearly a full life sentence. So that was her apology, and I was rolling my eyes while I was reading it. And that tells you how I feel about it.
Okay.
She
All right.
is not taking any responsibility for what happened. She's like, this happened to him, and I was not involved. Oh, she was kind of involved, but not really. Mm-hmm. And she says that there was no conversation around justice, racial justice, in 1982, which I was in 1982. I remember 1982. I remember conversations about racial justice. In fact, I remember that they went back to the 60s and even earlier. So I don't know what she's talking about.
I guess maybe what she's referring to is
her
more
personal life.
Common understanding among white people about the realities that people of color face with law enforcement in this country, right? And so maybe I benefit of the doubt here, right? Because
okay,
I read her apology. My initial reaction was, yeah, nice dodge, Alice. You know, but then at the same time, it's like, oh, wow, how would you apologize? Well, I know how you would apologize for something like this.
Right.
So Mr. Machani in the interview with BBC4 said that he did not accept her apology, right? He didn't think that it was a valid apology. He said that in her book, she misrepresented the trial and Mr. Broadwater, and that had she written the book based on the trial transcripts, Broadwater would have been released upon publication. He says, Alice made millions on the book. She should give a significant portion of that to Mr. Broadwater. Now, I don't know how I feel about, hey, you should give him money and like a lot of money, and right, because here, you know, the initial thing that started all this was she was raped, and
right.
She did, and I'm going to work with the wording here because I'll just say it. We'll clean it up later, right? So everybody, I apologize for this. I'm going to say that she did everything right, which is not a correct phrase to use. However you handle a sexual assault, personally, is the right way to do it. Most people don't report sexual assaults, right?
Right.
So she went to campus police. This happened off campus in a park, but she, you know, at 18 years old, she went back to that place of safety and security, which was school, campus, and talked to the police there. She then went to the police department where they collected evidence using a rape kit, right?
Right.
I've never been involved in that, but I know that, I think I know, I don't know if you're comfortable with my sharing this, that you used to work at a rape crisis counseling.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So you've dealt with people who have been victimized, and you know what that process of collection entails. And I can only imagine that it's a further public invasion of your body and privacy, right?
Largely, yeah. I shouldn't say because I want to encourage people who are able to do it to do that, but it can often be handled very poorly. So a lot of women have negative reactions to it.
Sure. I say sure, like sure, right? Sure, that's true. Of course, that's true. And so, given all that, she relied upon law enforcement to help her, and then misidentified somebody. I did not find anything about that interaction that you had mentioned where he said, "Hey, you look familiar." I could see where that would be rather alarming to hear if you were Alice in that moment.
That's what she says he said. I mean, no, there were no witnesses or anything. So, I mean, she may misremember.
Yeah, she may misremember. Who knows, right? But I mean, but she was definitely traumatized by all this, and turned to the legal system for assistance by going and reporting to the police, right? And then further victimized by the legal system, in having a prosecutor lie to her and tell her, oh yeah, that guy's trying to deceive you. He brought his friend with him, right? And as a 18, 19-year-old girl, right? Of course she believed I'm assuming it was a man,
the police.
right?
Yeah.
And it's not so much like she believed a man, but, there's just...
Well, she believed the police.
She believed the police, yes.
Yeah.
And she believed the person in authority, right? I would believe a prosecutor, for the most part.
I would think I would, too.
Yeah. So I can see where this is... so my initial reaction was, nice dodge, Alice. You're really passing the buck here, right? And then it's like, but Theo, she didn't on purpose misidentify this guy. She wasn't like, somebody's got to pay.
True.
And he, good enough, you'll do 5 months later, right? She legitimately mistakenly believed on the street in that moment that was the man who attacked her. And so, so that sort of thinking shifted my feelings around this public apology. You can't apologize for what happened to Mr. Broadwater. And right now, I'm just going to call because we need a joke. And this isn't a joke. I'm quite angry with God. We have more lazy writing. She is Alice Sebold, and he's Mr. Broadwater. Come on. S-E-A?
I don't get it.
Sea, ocean.
Oh, sea. And okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, her name is spelled Sebold, S-E-B-O-L-D, but it's pronounced Sebold. And I had to Google that to make sure that it was right so that I could justify my anger. And God, it's like there are more names. Everything doesn't have to be associated this way. So Mr. Broadwater and Ms. Sebold meet on the street, or whatever. And so initially...
Well, now I'm torn because
I know.
At first I was like, you identified the wrong dude, and you knew you identified the wrong dude because you were sitting there in that room and you pointed out the wrong dude, and then you changed your mind because of what someone else said to you, which is wrong. But now I'm a little bit like, well, yeah, it was the police that said to you that your choice was wrong, but I'm still on the fence.
Well, right. So my initial thing was like, oh, this is a 2-3 apology. It's nice that she did it. Anthony Sebold did ask for a public apology. Yeah. So from what happened,
she never says that she did anything wrong, and I think maybe that's because her lawyers advised her not to. But she never takes any responsibility for her mistake, and I don't know if it would be impossible to do that or not. But I wish that she had been able to do that.
You're right there. Maybe her attorneys said, you can apologize, but don't take any responsibility for it, because if you do, you're going to find yourself in civil court, right?
Right.
And so for what happened to Mr. Broadwater, of course, he's walking down the street. This woman identifies him and reports him to the police. He finds himself in custody. He was visiting his father. So Mr. Broadwater was in the Marines. He was there in New York visiting his dad, who was gravely ill. His dad died while Mr. Broadwater was either in trial or had been sent to jail. I don't know where his father died, but what part of the process his father died. But his father died with his son under suspicion for rape, incarcerated for rape, right? Being accused of rape. So that's terrible, obviously, right? Because his father didn't live to see his son exonerated. Then, of course, he had his 16 years in jail, and then he gets released in 1998, and he's listed as a sex offender, which makes finding a place to live hard, makes finding a job hard, right? And Mr. Broadwater did get married and is still
after he
married.
Was released.
Yeah, after he was released, he did get married sometime later, and he says, on my two hands, I can count the people that allowed me to grace their homes and dinners, and I don't get past 10. And that's very traumatic to me. This false charge has kept him in prison, although he's out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, true.
Having
He can't get a
relationships,
job.
making friends, right.
Yeah.
He even says that he wanted to have, he and his wife wanted to have children, but didn't because of the stigma around being a sexual
Offender.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And so that's tough. And after his conviction was overturned, he said to the New York Times, "I just hope and pray that maybe Ms. Sebold will come forward and say, 'Hey, I made a grave mistake,' and give me an apology. I sympathized with her, but she was wrong." And then on December 1st, she apologizes on Medium. And then Broadwater told the Times that he was grateful for Sebold's apology. And he said, "To make that statement, it's a strong thing for her to do, understanding that she was a victim and I was a victim too." And I'm going to say that in the, what's the word, pantheon of gracious acceptances.
Oh, yeah.
Number one now. It
Absolutely.
unseats Paris Hilton from that throne. Sorry, Paris. It is now Mr. Anthony Broadwater, who understands that the woman who falsely identified him is as much a victim of the racial injustice built into our legal system as he was. And of course, Alice, at one point in her book on this, in her memoir, mentions that she was afraid that the police were going to assume that she was just a panicked white girl reporting any black man that she happened to see, which unfortunately may have been the case.
Yeah, I mean, she said that she was afraid of certain types of black men, and I guess maybe this poor Mr. Broadwater just fit that type, and she ran into him on the street, and he looked sort of similar to the guy that raped her, and that was that. But he did very graciously accept her apology, and he said it comes sincerely from her heart. She knowingly admits what happened. I accept her apology. It was a big relief. It must have taken a lot of courage to come to terms and make that apology. It's still painful to me because I was wrongfully convicted, but this will help me in my process to come to peace with what happened. I mean, what a kind and generous guy.
Yep.
If I was in jail wrongfully for 16 years, boy, I think I'd be mad.
I wouldn't be gracious.
I don't think I would. I mean, maybe he had a lot of time to meditate or something in jail, but I don't know if you can meditate in jail, but if it's even possible. But gosh, what a amazing person.
Yeah, very much so. And I know from Mr. Machani, so sort of like this is some of the behind the scenes stuff that happened. We still, of course, have to rate the apology, and I'm delaying because I'm like, I am on this fence, and it's not on a 5 level. It's kind of like one way or the other, and I've been unsettled about the apology because I don't want to blame a victim, right. Or I don't want to heap more blame upon a victim. She says herself, she has to live the rest of her life knowing that not only did her rapist harm her, but she inadvertently harmed somebody else through the. So,
right.
It's like her rapist gets her twice. And, I don't even know that that's a way to phrase that, but she's victimized twice. And so I kind of feel like, I'm doing the rating thing here. Yeah, I kind of feel like, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I have a big issue with people who apologize and pass the buck.
Yeah.
To me, that's just like an automatic 2. But then on the other hand, this one's different for me.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So still processing. Okay. So, let's see. So to continue my delay, Mr. Machani, who is this executive producer, who discovered, oh, wow, the second part of this film that we're making about this trial, things aren't stacking up. And he hires a private investigator who is a hero whose name I want to find in my notes. Aha. And so the private investigator is Dan Myers, who had spent 20 years as a, thank you for this town, Onondaga County Sheriff's
Onondaga, yeah.
Thank you. They need to change that name to something that I can pronounce. He retired as a detective in 2020 and was approached by Machani, went in, and it took him 48 hours to get to the truth. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Only 48 hours. What? That's like 4 days?
Wow. 2 days.
Well, do you count the time that you're asleep?
No.
All right. So that'd be like 4 days.
48 hours. That's like a week. Yeah.
It's like 6
like
work days.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure he did it nonstop.
Oh, probably, of course, right? But anyway, yeah. So, retired Detective Myers, after his 48-hour investigation, gets to the truth and is like, "Wow, whoa, yeah, whoa." And so they go to the attorney, Mr. Hammond, who coincidentally Mr. Broadwater had just approached to represent him. Broadwater had been trying over the years to get attorneys to help him and had gone through a couple of attempts to redeem his name and get his case re-looked at. And just, again, wild coincidence, right? So in the midst of all this, the film, which was titled Lucky after the memoir, gets scrapped.
Yeah.
And Scribner, the publisher, is now pulling Lucky from distribution. Earlier, they said they weren't going to pull the book, and nor were they going to revise it. But now they have pulled Lucky, and they may re-release it with revisions. We will see. So Mr. Machani is now creating a documentary called Unlucky, which is being produced by Red Badge Films, and Broadwater is participating. And so in this interview, and I share all that to say that Mr. Machani is working with Mr. Broadwater. They're going to create a documentary based on this, and they should, because it's, I don't want to say what an incredible story. That sort of minimizes the horrible experience that Mr. Broadwater lived through. But Mr. Machani said, all Mr. Broadwater wants is a little farm in the country and to do some farming. He wants a nice, quiet life. And maybe Alice could help him get that.
Right. Hopefully. It is an interesting story. And you know what makes it a little more weird? Did you hear about Machani himself? Did you look into him at all?
No.
So Machani himself is a repeat white-collar felon and a disbarred lawyer, as well as a convicted polygamist with 3 stints in prison spanning 2 decades.
Up.
According to court records.
What?
Machani said that unlike Broadwater, he was guilty and deserved to be imprisoned. As a young lawyer in the 1980s, okay, this is a good part, Machani captured attention for persuading investors to give him $75,000 for a fictitious business venture in which $3 million was to be made by bartering British condoms for Russian chickens, which would then be sold in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, that's probably a true thing. Like, you probably have that sort of, like, exchange of things.
Apparently, but it wasn't true. It didn't happen. It didn't work out for anybody, any of the investors. But I couldn't believe that when I read it. I was like, does Broadwater know this?
And a polygamist?
And a polygamist. He married, like, 3 people or something. I don't know.
At the same time?
At the same time.
Because that's what polygamy means, I guess.
That's what polygamy means to you.
But did he marry them all in the same church and the same service? Well, I'm assuming a church, right? It doesn't have to be a church.
I don't
Jesus.
know.
No pun intended.
I don't know how it actually happens, but it's funny that you're most interested in the polygamy aspect. I'm interested in the chickens.
Well, the chickens didn't happen. I'm just going to quote my grandmother here. Holy fuckballs. I'm kidding. She never said holy. Fuckballs. No, I'm kidding. She never said that either. You're like,
that's Timothy Machani.
How was that not on my first page of returns when I Googled his name?
I don't know.
But the BBC4 interview was.
Find it. And how did he end up being executive producer of Lucky?
Well, I guess he has got money.
He scammed it.
He's got money to put into a film.
I guess so. Where did he get the money from?
Well, maybe chickens.
Maybe chickens.
Maybe chicken.
Who knows?
But okay,
but that's yeah.
I'm gonna say, all right, Mr. Machani, I don't want to say I don't mind people who rip off the system for money, right? Because that's illegal and bad, right? But but also it's like, all right, so you did that. That's not so bad. I mean, it is bad that you go to jail for that. I would never do that. Hey, did I tell you about this chicken offer that I've got going on?
Want to get in on it? Yeah. So, all right. So back to the story.
We haven't left the story.
Well, I mean, we kind of have. It's sort of a side road.
It's Machani who brought the chickens into it. It wasn't. Wow. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Well, I'm going to assume that since Mr. Machani says, yeah, hey, I deserved what I got and I did my time and I'm done, right? Or
I think that's how he feels about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the system. I mean, in theory, that's the system, right? It's like you serve your time,
although
and then
compare his life after he did his time with Broadwater's life after he did his time, and which one? I mean, Broadwater didn't even do anything, and he's unable to get a job and unable to have friends, basically, and unable to walk past the elementary school near his house because he's a sex offender.
Yeah.
And here, Timothy Machani is executive producer for a TV series or whatever. So. One's white. Hello. One's black.
But, and I think this is fair to point out, Machani is not allowed to walk past chicken ranches, and he's not.
And he's not allowed to buy condoms in bulk.
Not allowed to ship them to Saudi Arabia.
There's a quote I liked from Ziba Blay in Jezebel saying, there is a long, rich history in America of white women falsely accusing black men of rape, a history that exists far beyond the bounds of the legal sphere and which includes white mobs and black boys and men lynched for merely looking at white women. False rape accusations are rare, yes, but one must reconcile that with the fact that 52% of people falsely accused of rape are black men, and black men convicted of sexual assault are 3.5 times more likely to be innocent than white men.
Yep. I mean, that's not news to us now.
Perspective, yeah, it's not. It's just, I don't know what to say.
Well, I mean, that's the thing of like, once you start talking about grave injustices that happen to people, and I'll throw Alice Sebold into that grouping of grave injustices that happen to people. I think the legal system victimized her, as well as Mr. Broadwater.
Sure.
I forgot what point I was going to make because America's hero got hit in the face with a flag that was waving. I was going to make this great point. It was going to be so good. Oh, yeah, grave injustices that happen to people. I mean, what do you do, right? Because it's like, it's still happening, and we know it.
I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
Well, one of the suggestions. So I'll read it here. So Lorraine Berry in the LA Times said that Sebold's statement read more like a classic apologia, a self-absolving explanation, one vetted, no doubt, by an attorney to avoid admitting liability for Sebold's pointing to the wrong man in court. While the ultimate call on what would constitute proper contrition should rest with Broadwater, I have a suggestion. Sebold could make a sizable donation to an organization like the Innocence Project, which works to free those who have been wrongfully convicted, or she could establish her own foundation, perhaps one that helps the formerly imprisoned re-enter society, as Broadwater struggled to do in the face of intense ostracism and lost opportunities. Whatever she does, the uncomfortable fact is that, lawyered statement or not, Sebold is liable for the harm she caused, if not legally, then morally. Those who suffer trauma are not excused from inflicting trauma on the innocent, and pretending we didn't know better, as a society and as individuals, is an insult to those of us who did, and further injury to those we all victimized. I think that says it very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's not wrong. It does not take into consideration the fact that Alice Sebold did not do this on purpose, right? And maybe he or the writer was unaware that the prosecutor had sort of colored things in a way that would sway Ms. Sebold to.
I mean, does she have any responsibility? She she identified someone else, and the prosecutor said, yeah, that's so-and-so, bloody, bloody, blah. Does she not have the responsibility to say, well, I can't identify number 4 as the man who did it?
I suppose you have a point there. It's not even I suppose. That's a very valid point. I think it's just that I want everybody to win a prize and a box of chocolates and be happy.
Yeah.
And
that's not going to happen.
That's not,
I think everyone suffers in this story. Everyone is,
Well, if you're Catholic, then suffering is a joy. So I'm right.
Give it up to God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, that's who we can blame for all of this. So not our problem. God, shame on you once again.
Right. So, okay, so let's rate the apology.
That's what I've been trying to avoid. That's why I brought God into it. I was hoping I could throw some smoke and mirrors up and confuse you. The one show where we didn't rate an apology.
Yeah, I give it a 3 out of 10. I think it really didn't take any responsibility, and I think that's the key. I think it actively avoided responsibility, and maybe her responsibility wasn't super great. It wasn't entirely her fault that this man went to jail, but it was, if she didn't identify him, he probably would not have been able to go to jail. I mean, I don't know about the hair thing. Maybe he would have been able to get out of jail earlier if she hadn't identified him and he had gone to jail anyway. I don't know. And I think that her being unaware or claiming to be unaware that there was an issue with the justice system in regards to black men is a problem.
Well, it's a way of saying I'm woke and I'm on your side. And apparently only old people say woke now, so we'll have to find a different word. It's not a word I use, but but I do use it now, so apparently it is. But it's a way of saying I'm socially liberal. I understand, as well as somebody like me, Alice Sebold, can understand the realities that black people and people of color face in this country, blah, blah, blah. So, hey, I'm a good guy is what it says. And we're both victims. I don't disagree with her there. I mean, I'm going to just throw, it's a 4 for me. And that's higher than, like, if she had accused him of theft and not rape, then it's easy. Like, this is a 2, it's a 1, right? It's almost a non-apology. But I keep coming back to what happened to her, right? And not only what happened to her in terms of the sexual assault, but what happened to her with the prosecutor pushing her to identify Broadwater. And so a couple of extra points for me. And when I meet her at a dinner party in the future, and she's like, a 4, really? I say, listen, it was going to be a 2. Okay.
All right. So that's an average of 3.5 out of 10.
Which, I mean,
the two of us,
not great, but not horrible.
I mean, her apology was well written, at least. Which she's a writer, so we kind of would expect that.
Well, here's where she cannot write about this.
Yeah.
Right? There can't be a book from her.
No, she can't.
About her feelings around this.
Right.
I think, allow Mr. Broadwater to have that story. Don't. But I'm sure, because that's how writers work. Maybe Alice write the book and then just keep it in a drawer. Writers process things that happen to them through writing, because duh. And so for sure she'll be writing about this. But yeah, it'd be maybe write, and then all the money that book generates goes to Broadwater.
Yeah, I think the money from Lucky, a lot of it should go to Broadwater. I think she should definitely give him some money. That's how I feel anyway. I think he deserves some money, and if she has the money to spare, then it should go to him.
I'm going to say that's not a. Yeah, I mean, money doesn't fix anything, but at the same time, it's not going to hurt.
Broadwater.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she doesn't need to buy him a farm, but she could give him some money.
Well, you could get a cheap farm. Oh my God! Farm. Ready? A chicken farm.
What? Oh God!
He could have a chicken farm, and then
he could sell chickens to the Russians.
Won't be allowed to go visit him because of the chicken.
Right.
But I'm going to keep that.
All right, that's the solution. We settled it. It's all fixed.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy.
Well, I am going to share with you real quick on hair analysis, because that's the one thing that I was like,
okay.
I wonder what was debunked? How was it debunked? Why was it debunked? Right?
Okay.
Not so much that I believe in hair. I mean, of course I believe in hair, but
it exists.
It exists. It's a thing. Okay. So in April of 2015, The Guardian reported that a judicial catastrophe of epic proportions was occurring. The FBI and the Justice Department had admitted that in over 95% of about 3,000 trials revisited in a historic review, agents gave flawed testimony based on the pseudoscience of hair analysis. Microscopic hair analysis is now considered a pseudoscience, and it's a technique in which forensic experts use microscopes to match hairs found on crime scenes to defendants. Hair analysis has been in use since the 1850s, and there's reports of Ed Pinkleton, which you can just stop right there and we can close the show. There's the last name Pinkleton. Pinkleton. I am Mr. Pinkleton. It's nice to meet you, Mr. McCarthy.
It's like a children's story.
So citing a study that traces the technique's evolution from magic to law, the practice is based on erroneous claims that an individual's hairs can be reliably matched to them, but the technique is based on visual analysis and not DNA. It can only or should only be safely used to rule out a suspect. Like, oh, we've got blonde hairs, but you're a brunette.
Right.
Maybe that's like super basic.
Makes sense.
Right. Oh, we've got blonde hairs and you're bald.
Right.
Okay, let's see. And as of 2015, only 268 of about 2,500 cases involving hair analysis had been reviewed. In at least 35, so this is getting a little mathy, right?
Yeah.
In at least 35 of the 268 cases, the defendants were sentenced to death.
Oh, my God.
9 of those people were executed, and 5 of them died while on death row. Based off of a science that is now, or a form of evidence that is now, I was going to say discollected. That's not even a word. Discredited. Oh, could you just live in my brain all day? I've got a whole day of talking and stuff. So some other junk science real quick. Arson. Science and investigators have discovered that features long considered signs of a fire intentionally set also occur during accidents. Things like circular burn patterns, right? So where they say like, oh, the fire was really intense and burned in a splash pattern. Well, apparently that can just happen. As a therapist, are you familiar with a personality quiz called the Static 99?
No.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either. But so something else that's been discredited, the Static 99 helps decide which sex offenders are the riskiest and is still relied upon heavily in civil commitment proceedings. I don't even know what those are. And so basically it's a personality test, and it just tells you once you get the results, like, oh, this guy will most likely, of course I'm saying guy, probably 99.9% men. This person, more fair, is really likely to offend again, so therefore keep him in jail.
Holy shit.
Yeah, personality quiz. Let's see here. Bite mark analysis. The AP has found that since 2000, at least 24 people have been freed after DNA testing and other methods cleared them of crimes that bite mark analysts claimed they had committed. And then this one is always the one that surprises people. Blood splatter. So, yeah, sorry, Dexter. Not only were you a fictitious serial killer, but your job is now sort of fictitious as well.
Was he a blood spatter analyst?
Yeah. Have you never seen Dexter?
I didn't know that. I saw the first season, but I guess I didn't pay attention.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because half of the show is about how he's a blood splatter analyst.
All right.
Okay, so a 2009 National Academy of Sciences report concluded that the uncertainties associated with blood stain pattern analysis are enormous, and purported blood stain pattern experts' opinions are more subjective than scientific. So It's not just the hair stuff that's getting... I'm trying to think of a hair joke. Permed? That's not doesn't make any sense at all. But I needed to make a hair joke. Yeah. And so, yeah, we'll keep an eye. No, we won't. We'll say that we're going to keep an eye on what happens to Ms. Sebold and Mr. Broadwater.
Report back, not.
Right. Because, exactly. In the same way we haven't done
switches to Mr. Broadwater.
Anything we've ever said we were going to do on this podcast.
That's the way it is.
Yeah. But audience, listeners, if you guys are interested, then look into it and then tell us.
You do it.
Yeah. You know how lazy we are.
All right. So do we have a Who's Sorry Now or an apology is expected from you this week, Theo?
Yeah, I do have an apology expected. And it sort of syncs with our subject matter of sexual assault.
Very cool.
So Chris Cuomo was fired last night from CNN. And he was fired for helping his brother, Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, figure out like how to deal with these sexual assault cases that I am facing, charges. And so CNN fired him. I don't know the full details because I don't really care. I mean, let me rephrase that. Of course, I care that people are victimized, but I don't really care about Governor Cuomo. He's not my governor and blah. And of course, it's probably he was a little handsy in the office, probably is my guess, right? And of course, his brother, because they're close, helped him. And, you can wait for the apology to come from Chris Cuomo. Yeah.
Chris Cuomo.
There's another opportunity that parents missed to make their child's life really hard. You should have been called Quist.
Quist Cuomo. Do you think CNN will rehire Chris Cuomo?
No. No.
Okay, good. I hope not.
They will. Although they brought Jeffrey Tubin back.
Yeah.
And although, did Jeffrey Tubin assault anybody other than himself? You know what I'm saying? Hey. Well, you did the dick sucking joke.
I did. I opened up the door. So, all right. I have an apology expected as well. What?
You opened up the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to hand it to you.
So my apology is expected. Stop.
Okay.
All right. San Francisco restaurant Hilda and Jesse denied service to 3 San Francisco Police Department officers on Friday because their weapons made staff uncomfortable. So they let them sit down and then they politely asked them to leave, saying in an Instagram post that the restaurant is a safe space and the presence of weapons prompted its staff to deny service to the officers. We respect the San Francisco Police Department and are grateful for the work they do. We welcome them into the restaurant when they are off duty, out of uniform, and without their weapons. The restaurant said its actions are not a political statement, saying it did what it thought was best for its staff. And the police department chief, William Scott, tweeted a response saying, "The San Francisco Police Department stands for safety with respect, even when it means respecting wishes that our officers and I find discouraging and personally disappointing." So I'm saying that probably, I don't know, actually. I'm thinking that they'll probably end up apologizing, not necessarily because people will complain, because this is San Francisco, and I think people will be okay with them denying the police officers service while they were in uniform with their weapons. But I think that they'll probably buckle under to the police department and apologize to the police department.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say I've been definitely out in public in places like a grocery store, and there's been a police officer with a gun in a holster, and it makes...
Well, you're in Texas. I would expect you to be in places with people, regular people.
The good news is I've never seen that, because if I did, I would leave the establishment. I'm not going to be in a space where Billy Joe, Jim Bob... Yeah. No, thanks. You need your gun to go shopping. Groceries aren't that scary.
I'm leaving.
You're an adult. Yeah. I'm out. Yeah. Right. Because what you're going to do is go crazy with your gun. And I don't need to be there for that. Or
accidentally shoot someone.
Oh, I never even thought about that. I always think about like intentional, like, I'm crazy for Cocoa Puffs. Grocery store cereal.
That could happen, but I'm expecting the gun to go off by accident and shoot people.
Yeah, I'm randomly out. I mean, regardless, I'm out.
Right.
And so, yes. But then at the same time, it's like, the cops have hard jobs, and, what can, and they are also, unfortunately, targets at times. And so it's just that thing, right? It's completely tangential, but also related. In Israel, certainly in Tel Aviv, right? You go into a restaurant, you sit down, and then you may have some soldiers that come in with machine guns strapped to their backs.
Yeah.
And sitting and having, and in that situation, I'm fine. I mean, it gets a little scary because it's like, oh, wow, shit's real. Like, I keep forgetting that, like, what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Because I've been having a nice vacation. And then you have like, I'll say young 20-something-year-old girl who walks in with 2 machine guns strapped to her back, right? And it's like, wow. But then she sits down and she eats, and everybody is just sort of, it's normal. And so I don't get up and leave in that situation. But that person I know has been trained, right? And
knows how to handle it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? And so... what's the point of that, other than in some situations? I guess if I saw cops come into a restaurant, it might give me pause, but I'd feel more like, okay, all right, they know how to handle a gun. Whereas if I just saw, like I said, a person with a gun, I'm out.
Right. I'm so glad I don't live somewhere where I can see that. Generally speaking, just a dude wandering around with a gun, because that's uncomfortable and unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. I'm sorry your dick is small.
Leave the gun at home.
You don't need to advertise it.
Right. Has there ever been an occasion where a good guy with a gun has stopped a bad guy with a gun? I don't know.
There's one I can think of at something in Vegas in a 7-Eleven, but maybe that's the good guys got shot. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more typical in the news cycle that the good guy with a gun got shot or shot somebody mistakenly or whatever, couldn't right? It's always the bad thing that could have happened. But there's like one story where I think gun right activists I'll call my cousin because he's a lifetime member of the NRA.
Okay.
And he could give us a list of all the times.
He'll tell you.
Yeah. Yes, Theo, right, let's start with America.
All right, I look forward to your report back on that, along with all our other reports back on things.
You'll have to call him. I don't even have his phone number.
Do you know his name?
I do.
All right, good. That's a start. All right.
Well, I guess that's it. Yeah.
I think that's it for today.
We're done.
Yeah. That was kind of a rough one, but I think we got to we made a good decision on the ratings.
We got enough dick jokes that's all we're here in this episode to qualify as another classic Apologies Accepted episode.
A classic Apologies Accepted. All right, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week with another exciting Apologies Accepted. Accepted. That's right. Yeah. The podcast.
We'll maybe be back with a podcast.
All right.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.